It's time to take a look at our business news with Brian Quinn. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Jeannie.
Now, you're starting with the possibility of another mega merger in the streaming media business as that sector is undergoing some major upheaval.
Now it's Amazon. Amazon reportedly in talks to buy MGM Studios for $9 billion. MGM, of course, one of Hollywood's best known and longest running independent studios, recognizable by its roaring Leo the Lion mascot in the opening credits of its films. It's also one of the few major studios that has not already been bought up by a larger media conglomerate. A deal would give Amazon's Prime streaming service access to a huge catalog of classic content, as well as modern hits like the James Bond franchise and The Handmaid's Tale. This report comes amid a slew of media deals in recent weeks, with AT&T spinning off its Warner Media Group to combine with Discovery, as many companies seek to compete with streaming leaders like Netflix, Disney, and Amazon itself.
Brian, the tourism industry is really hoping that this year will bring a major recovery from the pandemic as well, with airlines particularly keen to ramp up their operations.
That's right. Emirates Airlines, in fact, says it expects to be up to 70% capacity by year end as more and more countries start to reopen their borders to tourists. The Dubai-based carrier laid off some 25% of its staff over 2020 and drastically reduced its routes. It's currently in negotiations to rehire personnel and is back up to serving 85% of its previous destinations. Emirates has already received $2 billion in government bailouts and could require even more before all is said and done. The company's chairman says he's counting on a strong summer vacation season to help it recover, and he supports health passports to make that happen. Take a listen.
Whatever name you will give it, it is a passport or it is a certificate. I think it should be easy, simple, the way passenger travel across the world, like it used to be. It should be on your mobile.
Meanwhile, here in Europe, airlines are coming up with some very creative ways to try and keep the money flowing as they wait for regular passengers to start flying again.
Well, airlines here on the continent, of course, have gotten their fair share of government relief funds. The Air France KLM group, for example, has gotten more than 10 billion euros in state-backed loans, with 4 billion in additional bailout funds for Air France. But despite border closures, they're also managing to keep operating flights at a profit by replacing passengers with packages. Solange Moujan and our colleagues at France Television's report.
Nearly ready for takeoff, this Paris-London flight is far from having sold out. 3 out of 4 seats are actually empty. But the flight is nonetheless profitable for Air France, because below deck there is a hive of activity. The belly of the plane is being filled to capacity with cargo.
This is fish food, which will be kept cold in the aircraft hold.
With the COVID pandemic halting much of the globe's passenger air travel, many commercial flights have adapted by taking on more cargo.
With COVID, freight represents 80% of what we put in the hold. Usually it's the opposite.
A transportation shift that has allowed Air France to bring in just as much money as if the flight were sold out. The pilot is pretty thankful for that.
It's satisfying. We are not getting rusty, so the company will be ready to take off again.
More than just a lifesaver, transporting freight has been a boon for airlines. For demand in merchandise has skyrocketed, which also means airlines have been able to raise prices.
This pallet of airline parts in Champagne weighs 1,750 kilos, and its shipping price is around 70% more than what it was before COVID. We can charge more, and we also need to get the planes flying.
Some companies like KLM have even fitted passenger seats with cargo bags to better hold packages. A temporary remodel that's allowed this flight from the Netherlands to China to carry 10 extra tons and bring in 30,000 euros. Not to mention keeping airline staff at work as a human chain of parcel passers.
Next to Japan, where there's been some bad news for the Japanese economy, seems to be faring worse than expected.
That's right. Japan's overall economic output contracted by 1.3% in the first 3 months of the year as the government reinstated restrictions amid a resurgence of COVID-19. The drop due in large part to a fall in private consumption as restaurants and shops reduced their opening hours. Economists, though, are warning that the contraction is likely to continue in the second quarter after the government imposed a third state of emergency for critical economic regions, including Tokyo and Osaka.
Brian, how are the markets doing today?
Well, Asian indexes actually traded higher Tuesday despite that Japanese economic data. European markets also seeing some minor gains as investors go bargain hunting after several losing sessions. Confirmation that the Eurozone has now entered technical recession with its second consecutive quarter of economic contraction, likely holding back some progress there, though. Shares in French utilities giant Engie are up nearly 4% as it announced a massive investment plan in renewable energy Tuesday. CAC 40 here in Paris up just under 0.25%, London and Frankfurt slightly ahead at midday.
Just to wrap up for you now, Brian, the International Energy Agency was founded in large part to prevent disruptions in the flow of oil, but times have changed and it seems to be taking a bit of a different tack.
That's right. The Paris-based institution was indeed chartered in response to the 1973 oil crisis. It's now responding to a different crisis, that of climate change. The IEA now says energy companies must halt all new oil and gas exploration projects starting this year if humanity is to have a chance of avoiding catastrophic global warming. Its latest report out Tuesday is called Net Zero by 2050. In it, the IEA says the world needs to go from $2 trillion a year in low-carbon technology investment up to $5 trillion annually amid a massive overhaul of energy supply and demand. The report, a significant departure for the traditionally fossil-friendly agency. Environmental groups are hailing it as a milestone, and it's true that the IEA reports generally do tend to serve as benchmarks for policy creation, so we'll see, fingers crossed, if hopefully it has an effect.
Brian, you're a Parisian. What are you doing tomorrow?
Oh, Jeannie, I think I might just be out on the terrace.
Yes, because believe it or not, finally, after 7 months, Paris's beloved terraces are opening up once again. There's going to be a lot of us trying to find a spot there, and we will give you all the details on what's going to happen coming up just after the break. Stay with us.